Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Sunday's Gamepass Gaming Sunday podcast. I'm Pux. I'm going to be hosting today's show, and we put together some really good topics to discuss today. Unfortunately, it does seem to have been another fairly light news week, but there has been a few goings on in the gaming world, and of course, things like Forza Horizon 5 have come out, amongst other smaller parts. So we're going to be discussing that, among others. So before I do introduce the panel, I shall begin by going over the topics that we are going to discuss. So, as I've just mentioned, actually, we will initially start with Forza Horizon 5 impressions. So, the early access part of this has come out to those people on Friday, I believe it was, and I've seen a lot of people on Twitter have been highly enjoying that. And we'll see if any of the panel have been playing it, if they have or haven't, what they think of it, and if they're looking forward to the game. And then, by extension of this, there's also been a lot of Twitter conversations and communications, as well as within our own Discord channel, regarding early access on Game Pass. So this being about games such as Forza Horizon 5, where they are coming to Game Pass day one. However, if you do pay for some sort of extra content or whatever else, you get early access to it. And there's been some interesting back and forths and mixed opinions on this. So we are going to get the panel's thoughts on that and see what we think as well. And then we're going to dive into something a lot different from that, and we're going to discuss some Elden Ring gameplay, because the reveal trailer for that got released about 3 days ago, about a 20-minute long segment. We're going to get the panel's thoughts on that. And then finally, we're going to end off by discussing PlayStation's investment in Devolver. So there's been some extra news that PlayStation have invested more in Devolver. They have a minority stake. And we're going to discuss what that means for PlayStation and Sony platforms in the future. And if we have any more time at the end, we may also then add on about the Microsoft and Sega partnership that got officially revealed, and see what we all think about that. So it's a really good fun show today. I'm really looking forward to it. But before we go into those topics, let's go through the panel, and I'm going to do it in order. So as you see it on screen. So Luke Steele, how have you been doing? Have you had a good week? What have you been up to? Anything interesting? And what games have you been playing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Yeah, I've not been playing too much other than Guardians of the Galaxy still. I think I'm fairly close to the end of that now, probably a couple of hours left. And just loved it. Loved every second.
Still rate it as one of the best Marvel games you've played?
Yeah, I would put it up there. I'll need to finish it to determine whether it's better than Spider-Man. I don't think it is, but it's not far.
The fact that you even have to think about that, look, sorry to interrupt, is actually quite ridiculous in my opinion. Yeah, the fact that that's not just obvious to you is I guess such a sort of just its own way of saying how great a game it is.
Yeah, no, definitely, totally agree, and yeah, it just continues to surprise me really how good it is. Even to the point where it could have used, I think, a little bit more time of polish. There's some stuff that comes up now and then that's a bit rough, in terms of glitches and stuff. But because it's so good, you kind of just forget about it. Like it doesn't bring the game down at all, which I think is a real testament to how enjoyable it is. So it's really great. So I've been playing a bit of that, finishing that off. Still going through Metroid Dread, although I haven't played as much of it this week as I would have liked.
Are you still enjoying Metroid as well?
That's brilliant. I mean, that's just so good. It's just really good. The thing is, I kind of want to finish Guardians and then really focus on Dread, because I think Dread is, it's a bit more cerebral. You kind of have to concentrate a bit more with it. So, and then after that, I'll be going back to Deathloop, which I've also played a little bit more of this week, which is really, really good. Really good. But Guardians is just keeping me away from those games. So again, another kind of sly bit of praise for it. So, and I'm hoping to finish maybe 2 of those off. Probably just Guardians off before Tuesday, which is obviously when Horizon comes out. So busy.
That sounds really good. Really good mix of games there. I'll quickly move on to Scott. How have you been this week? Have you been gaming much recently? And have you been up to anything interesting?
Yeah, good man. Thank you very much, Pox. My week in terms of games hasn't been quite as exciting as Luke's. I'm afraid to say. I've mainly been playing just the new season of Apex Legends. I actually had a massive break for that. From the end of the last season. It was actually the first season I didn't complete the battle pass, but season 11, I think it is, came out on Tuesday. So I've jumped into a fair bit of that, checking out the new map. In terms of single player games, I haven't actually been picking up an awful lot. I didn't want to start anything ahead of Horizon, which I'll be putting a lot of time into when that comes out next week or comes out last week, depending on what way you look at it. We'll get into that. And obviously then probably from Forza, I'll be moving into Halo. So I did make a start on It Takes Two with the missus just earlier today, actually. That went into Gamepass just this past week. We probably put about maybe 45 minutes an hour into it, but really like what I played, actually. It was a really enjoyable game. I was surprised by how some of the puzzles were. How they were kind of both challenging, fun, and rewarding at the same time. Not too sure how I feel about sort of some of the characters, one in particular, but otherwise, really enjoyed what I played. So, but other than that, not an awful lot, but really looking forward to getting into tonight's show, Pucks.
Oh, brilliant! That's really good. No worries. And finally, last but definitely not least, is our founder and primary host of the show, Flap. How have you been, sir? And have you been up to anything interesting? And what have you been playing this week?
Yeah, hi Bucks. Hi chat, how everyone? Yeah, it's been a bit of a week. I've been away on work for most of the week, so staying in a hotel and stuff. And thankfully, most hotels in the UK have now kind of caught up with TVs in the room, having HDMI ports and stuff like that. So I took the opportunity to take my Series X with me. Because I was kind of staying away on my own, so I had some time to kill, and yeah, my God, have I been playing some games? I will rattle off the list. I managed to complete Echo Generation early on in the week, so I really liked that game. It took me by surprise, and we showed the footage on last week's show, and absolutely loved it. And that did something very peculiar because it led me back into Yakuza Like a Dragon. I've never really been a fan of I've never been a fan of turn-based combat, but I really enjoyed it in Echo Generation. I thought, let's just, if I can get over that aspect, then I know Like a Dragon is a fantastic game. And thankfully, I kind of got over that speed bump, and I am deep into Yakuza Like a Dragon now, days before Forza Horizon 5 launches and weeks before Halo launches. So it's a bit of a stupid thing to do, but I'm absolutely having a blast playing that. Also been playing some Back 4 Blood. In fact, yourself and I, Puxley, and my daughter, we played last night, didn't we? We had a few rounds on Back 4 Blood. Really enjoyed that. Vanguard came out on Friday. I've been playing some multiplayer Call of Duty, and if anyone likes Call of Duty, it's a fairly good one when it comes to multiplayer. I haven't even begun to think of the single player. And like you, Scott, I've also been playing It Takes Two with my daughter, and I think that is an absolute gem. What a fantastic game that is. I'm absolutely loving it. I think graphically it looks phenomenal. The story and voice acting is really good, and I just love the puzzles and how it plays. I think it's a really intuitive and fun game to sort of share with someone. I also like that when you're playing it with someone else, even if you're playing online with someone else, you still get the split screen. Because I quite like that, because you can see what they're doing. If you're playing online or sat on the couch co-op, you get the same screen, and I really like that side of it. It's been really well thought out, and it's a great game, and I hope it's a contender for Game of the Year in some of the categories. But
oh wow, so you liked it that much?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think you need to play it. I do. It won't be Game of the Year, but it will be in there in one of the categories, I'm hoping. But I liked it that much. So yeah, quite a busy week for me all round, really. But I managed to get lots of quality game time in, thankfully.
Yeah, despite being work busy, you managed to squeeze all that in. That's very impressive.
I did.
So I've had a busy work myself, unfortunately, and I've had not that time. Apart from a bit of Back 4 Blood last night, but that's a weekend, so I could do that. But during the week, my week's actually been pretty light, I'm afraid. But no, it's great. You've all got a good gaming in. That's very good to hear. Unless there's anything else, chaps, I'm happy to jump into topic one. Forza Horizon 5 impressions. So, as I said at the top of the show, during the introductions, this came out on Friday. I know a lot of the early access players have been playing this. I know a number of our community and otherwise, and other podcasters who I follow on Twitter have been showing their gameplay, showing their photos, and I mean, my initial impressions, at least from the clips and especially the photo mode. I mean, oh my god, I think I saw Wandering Dutch put a number of photos up during the week, and I had to do it. It was like a very simple, small tagline, and I missed originally that it had a hashtag Forza on it, and I had to do a double take because like the quality of this thing, it looked real. Like I could not believe that this was in-game footage. Now, I appreciate it's a photo mode, and maybe there's some graphical changes and whatever else, but still, like, it looked phenomenal. To the fact I had to do a double take and just double check that the hashtag was Forza because it just looked so damn realistic, and I couldn't believe how great it looked. And reviews wise as well, I haven't played it yet. I should say I haven't paid for the extra content to get the early access. I'm happy to wait until when it comes out. Was it the 9th?
Tuesday,
yes, the 9th. But yeah, I am very much looking forward to this. But I should say, I guess that I love racing games. I like racing games. I should say I play them a lot as a kid, but I'm not a massive lover of racing games as a whole, as a genre. It's not one I would typically jump to or go for. And I think the last one I properly played again was Forza Horizon 4, but that was after it had been out for a number of years, and I finally had a PC that was good enough to play it. And the reviews for this as well have been absolutely top. A lot of people saying this is definitely Game of the Year contender. Again, this is something that we talked about, and made our own assumptions as to whether or not it would make it at the Game Awards this year at all, or anything like that. And a lot of the press and stuff seem to think it's definitely a contender that should at least be on the list somewhere. And it just looks great. But then I've also seen some reviews which say, like, graphically, yes, it's absolutely top of the line. It looks super amazing. Nothing else looks quite like it. It's the best thing yet to show off the power of the Xbox and Series X and S, whatever. But again, the other side of the coin, on a few reviews, which have still given it great scores, have also said that it's still very much Forza Horizon. It's not too much different from 4, apparently. And yes, you drive around in a big open environment. It graphically looks a lot better. But overall, I have seen a lot of outlets state that it's Forza Horizon. You're still driving around in nice, fast cars. You're doing the challenges. You're doing the standard Forza festival challenges, whatever they're called. But it looks great, and I can't wait to play it. I'm very happy to jump in. I don't personally think it's something that I would play for an awfully long time, though. Again, mainly because of the fact that racing games... I mean, I love things like Mario Kart, and that, don't get me wrong, but I don't consider that a top-of-the-line Mario game. That's more of an arcade game, I'd say. So let's jump straight to the panel. I'm going to start with Flap, I think. I'll start from the bottom and go upwards. What have your impressions been of the game so far? Have you had a chance to play it? What have you seen online, and what do you think? Is this something that you're looking forward to jumping into?
Now, yeah, I am absolutely, especially graphically. I think, actually, before we start, let's just get the elephant in the room out of the way. This isn't my game capture footage. I did have to borrow this from a channel called MK Ice and Fire. They do some fantastic walkthroughs. They're very popular. So if you're not subscribed to them already, please go and check out their channel. There is a link in the description below, MK Ice and Fire. It's a great channel. Like I say, they do all walkthroughs and stuff. So I have had to borrow this footage. And that probably alludes to the fact that I didn't actually pay for the early access. I was tempted, I'm not going to lie. I nearly got the credit card out and went for it, but thought, it's just a few days away. It's literally wait until Tuesday. And thankfully, I had Yakuza Like a Dragon on the go as well at the time. So I just literally did not have time to squeeze in another game, however excited I am for this. But graphically, I think it was Digital Foundry, actually, that got me the most excited because they were very, very praiseworthy of this game. They've done a couple of videos on it now. Even to the point where they were saying, actually, playing this game at 30 frames a second, because it's so graphically beautiful, it is actually kind of viable to a certain degree because they got some fantastic motion blurring and stuff like that going on. I probably won't be playing it at 60 frames all the way, to be honest, but it's interesting that they can make the game look so beautiful and work quite well in 30 frames a second, particularly for a driving game. So I'll probably check that out, to be honest, and just see the graphical differences, but it looks absolutely stunning. And to be honest, I'm quite biased. I am looking from an Xbox Series X point of view, but they've done a fantastic job on the Series S and also the base consoles as well, the Xbox One consoles. They look, fantastic. And when we're talking performance, we are talking literally a locked frame rate of either 30 or 60. So it's a really impressive game. It's kind of the first, in my opinion, it's the first big hitter from Microsoft first-party studios. It's the highest scoring next-gen game so far. It will be very interesting to see what happens with this at the Game Awards. There's already been mention on other channels that driving games don't traditionally win or even put forward in some categories, obviously. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this one, because it looks absolutely stunning. It is more of the same. It is kind of Forza Horizon 4, but much more beautiful in a different locale. With obviously more up-to-date cars, but I'm fine with that. I'm really down with Forza Horizon 4. I loved it to bits. I loved just goofing around, going for the jumps and stuff, and I am really excited for Tuesday. In fact, I've got it pre-downloaded, so yeah.
Ah, brilliant. Well, I'm not going to waste any time. Let's jump straight to Scott. What did you think? Same questions to you. What have you seen online? Have you played the game yet? Initial impressions? Is this something you're looking forward to, or you like it but you give it a pass? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm similar to Flap. I was tempted by the early access. We'll jump into that in a moment. There's a big reason why I didn't, but so I've not had a chance to play it, which is a shame really, because I've seen some bloody awesome clips. We've got a few people in the chat like Dutch, and I think Pyro's mentioned he's been playing as well, where I've been seeing screenshots, clips, just impressions posted on Twitter, on YouTube, and it's all so overwhelmingly positive that it's made me a little jealous. I'm not going to lie. So everything I've seen seems to be fantastic, and kind of it does appear to be quite a step up over 4. I think obviously, while maybe it is more of the same. I think Forza Horizon 3 and 4 are some of the best racing games ever. I don't think that's too wild to say. So to improve on those games, I think is quite the achievement by Playground. I think one of the biggest things I've noticed is just the setting of Mexico. I've seen so many people talk about how Mexico just is such a vast improvement over the UK. As much as I like the UK, I did actually prefer the Australian setting of 3 over the UK in 4, but Mexico does seem to be quite the step up. So I'm really excited to be jumping into it. I'll probably be jumping into it on Monday. I'll going to be taking a quick trip to New Zealand on Monday, I think, to maybe just get a little bit of, I guess, not early access, but slightly earlier access to the game. And I'm really excited to jump in, Pucks. It'll be great to hear what everybody else in the chat's played, our thoughts are if they've played it, because the the positivity by it is outrageous. I don't know if you guys saw, but people have been looking at the leaderboards, and there's over 1 million people have already seemingly played the game, and it's
crazy,
not
isn't it?
out till Tuesday, which is crazy. When you consider that Forza Horizon 4, I think they announced had like over 20 or maybe even 25 million or 24 million players or something like that. It does seem like this is going to be quite a hit for Xbox, and then it's only a few short weeks until Halo after that. So it's sort of finishing the year very strong.
It's a quick question for you.
Yeah,
quick question for you, Scott, actually, because you raised some good points there about, especially given the substantial number of players who've just jumped into this, and it's not even officially out yet for the rest of us, So do you reckon, why is that exactly, do you think? Because again, driving games, as popular as they are as a niche, I guess, they're not mainstream popular necessarily, are they? I would say, correct me if you think I'm wrong there, but what do you think it is? Why so many people have jumped on this? Do you reckon it is the graphics that is really bringing people in? Do you reckon, or in the technical standpoint, or do you reckon people just out of nowhere are just loving the fact that you can drive around anywhere? Did you reckon people maybe missed Forza Horizon 4?
Yeah, it's a good question, Pucks, and I think to maybe answer it sort of with two points. As I mentioned there, Forza Horizon 4 was stupidly popular. It, like I say, I think they announced it was over 25 million players just a few months back, or 25 million people have played the game, which is obviously a humongous number. I also think because it's Horizon and not Motorsport, it's a little bit more accessible. I think sim races are a little bit more niche, but I think kind of the more arcadey races like Horizon, going back in the day, Project Gotham Racing was one of my favorite games on the original Xbox. I think they are a little bit more accessible in some ways, and people are a little bit I don't think they're as niche as maybe some other, I guess in particular sim racers are. So I think you combine those two with what Flap just mentioned a few minutes ago, where I think he's right in saying this is certainly the first real next gen showcase for Xbox at the very least. And you've got what is it, however many Xbox One owners, 50-60 million of those. You've got closing at 10 million Xbox Series owners. The game's in the top sellers list on Steam. So I think it's just a combination of all those things where people are just super excited to jump into what is a pretty seemingly a stellar game. And obviously Xbox Series owners are looking for something that shows off for their new hardware.
Yeah, that sounds good. Good points there. I'm going to waste no time again. Let's jump straight to Luke. Similar questions, actually. And I suppose I'll also pose that same question to you as well, as to why do you reckon this game seems to be massively popular straight out the gate, seeing as it's not immediately out for the rest of us yet. As well as, have you played the game and what are your initial impressions? Is this something that you're going to be playing day one and stick to with a long time, or is it just going to be an in and out game for yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I think in terms of the amount of people that are, paying for the early access kind of unlock element. I think as Scott said, that Forza Horizon 4 really was, I guess, almost the takeoff of the series. That's when I remember it really taking off in terms of more mainstream popularity, was that game. And so I think that combined with, you've had a lot of people get access to Forza Horizon 4 from Gamepass that have played it. I've got multiple friends actually that have, including one who's not a racing fan at all, exactly like me, jump into it and just played the hell out of it, and just absolutely loved it. So I think the combination of that and then the game looking how it does, and it's kind of popping up everywhere on Twitter or on YouTube, etc., has just kind of coalesced to create an environment where lots of people are willing to pay a bit of money to get it and to get early access to it. So I think that's probably why it's taken off. But it's and it's great. I think it's fantastic that it's gaining popularity even further because as I said, I'm not a racing game fan at all. Really, don't really like sim races. The only races I ever enjoyed were really stuff like Mario Kart, right, and stuff like that.
Same as myself, then, yeah.
Yeah, so or like Burnout. That's kind of the extent of my racing enjoyment. But Horizon is actually one of the few racing games I actually really love. So, and I think
the open world aspect for you then? Is that why you like them compared to, as you say, a typical sim racer?
I think that's a big part of it. I think the thing is with Horizon, I think if you distilled it into one word, it's just fun. You know what I mean? Like it's just really fun, and it's a great audio-visual experience, and it's kind of Moorish in that way. You kind of come back to it and you want more of that, and it's just, it gives you a really good feeling when you play it. I mean, obviously it controls well and all that sort of stuff, but it's kind of the combination of, it's something that Digital Foundry talked about actually. They were talking about like the combination of all these different factors, so music and visuals and the control of the cars, etc., and then the open world doesn't detract from that really, which might do in some games, but the open world here just makes everything even better, because it's so beautiful and there's it's a different kind of structure to other open world games because it's a racing game. So there's all of that stuff which kind of goes into it and makes me want to play it. I haven't paid for the early access yet. I was very, very tempted, but I wanted to get through some other games before it came out, and I was like, well, there's no point paying for the early access because it will just take away from those other games, and then I won't complete them, and then they'll be added to an already impossible backlog to actually complete. So I'll be playing it on Tuesday. When it releases, probably on PC. The port there is very good, apparently, unsurprisingly for Playground. So yeah, I really can't wait for it. I think it's going to be. It looks fantastic. The reviews are not surprising in the slightest for it because it's always been a highly rated franchise, and Playground are just an amazing developer. So, even if it's more of the same, quote unquote, the formula is so good that they don't need to change this that much. I can't see it. I think with some games, maybe you could see this formula getting stale if it was being done time and time again. But I think just the nature of this being an open world racer, because you don't have any of those, they don't really exist properly outside of Horizon. I don't think.
How dare you dismiss the crew?
Oh, sorry, God. Well, that's a Ubisoft racer, so it doesn't count anyway. So they just don't. There's nothing really like this. I mean, you got Riders Republic now as well, which actually isn't bad, but it's not like this. So, I think if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And I didn't really see much criticism in terms of the formula. I think it will take a few more games before reviews perhaps catch up with that element, before some people start saying, well, actually it's time for it to be, to change a little bit now. But I don't really know how you do that with this sort of game. So I think it's great. I'm really happy for Playground as well, because it's just another notch on their belt, and makes people, I think, even more excited for Fable going forward, right? To see what they can do in a completely different genre. So
you know what? I thought exactly the same. It's like, if they can pump this kind of quality game out, I appreciate Fable's a different set of devs, but yeah, it's a really good indicator for the generation going forwards, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
That's really cool. I actually kind of mirror a lot of what you say, as you say, because you're not a big racing fan. Yeah, I loved it. I loved playing racing games as a kid, but yeah, outside of Mario Kart, I don't jump to them. And despite, I know what I said at the beginning during my initial introduction to this topic, but I've seen some of the comments actually, and I do agree. There's one here from Pyro M I've seen who says to me about how the great thing about Forza Horizon is that the racing is only a piece of the game, and you can get a lot of enjoyment just driving. And you know what? That actually did spark a kind of a memory in my head, I guess, when I did first begin to play Forza Horizon 4. Like, I did actually have that for a long time. For someone, again, not a massive racing game fan, not something I'd immediately jump to, I do remember the enjoyment of going through and just driving down the roads, finding a challenge, doing a race, and then when you saw the seasons change and stuff as well, that was really interesting stuff, and it was really cool just to drive around the same environment, but under a different environment. The same map and world, but just a different physical season. That's the word I'm looking for. Season of the year, and just how that completely changes the game. So
it's kind of cool seeing the driver tars driving around as well. So sort of, your Xbox.
I know there were some issues on Forza Horizon 4, so it seems like a lot of the syncing issues of that seems to have been resolved. At least from what I've seen.
Like I say, it's just pretty cool driving around, and there's like a gamer tag that pops up that you recognise. It's like, and you can just sort of, I don't know, I just like how you can interact with that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is cool. I'm going to jump onto topic 2 because it is linking to Forza Horizon 5 as a starting point. But before I do, what should I do? Scott, have we got any comments you wouldn't mind reading out at all? And chat, by the way, chat, if you've got anything else you'd like us to share about what your thoughts on this game are, please let us know, and we'll see if we can read them out.
Yeah, definitely, Puck. So we've actually got a couple here from Wandering Dutch, who says, first of all, he thinks, so far it's my joint Gordy with Psychonauts 2, which I love Psychonauts 2, so having it up there with that is good news for me. He also says the audio, the visuals, level of details is chef's kiss. The changes from 4 are far more than stated in some of the reviews. You will notice it when you all get a chance to jump in. There's lots to do. And he also says the fact that this isn't technically day one also means that early access users don't have the day one patch. So a few connection issues, etc., that are being worked on before official release. So it does look like any sort of issues, although I haven't seen too many issues from those who have had early access. It just looked like hopefully come Tuesday there will be a little bit it'll be a little bit more stable. We got a couple here from Shizno, who says Forza is amazing, Playground have really outdone themselves. Yeah, and I think that's a lot of where the excitement for Fable comes from. It's not obviously they're completely different genres, but I just think the achievement from this development studio just gets people excited for whatever they can do in a different genre. And he also says, I think that the change in map really helps keep it from getting stale, which I think is a really good point, because you guys were just talking there about if they need to change it up. I think the map is sufficient enough to change. If you compare it to maybe a sim racer, that generally uses the same tracks. You've always got the Nürburgring, you've always got Laguna, Seca or whatever it's called. You've always got kind of like a lot of the same tracks, a lot of the same cars, except for maybe the new cars that have released since, which I guess puts more emphasis on maybe gameplay or mechanical changes that they have to do to kind of keep it fresh from the last game, and obviously any graphical upgrades. But I think with Horizon, I think the different environment changes, or the map changes that they made, really do kind of make it feel a little bit more fresh each time. And also they can do like wacky stuff, that you can't do in a sim. This one's launched with the Eliminator mode. I don't know if any of you guys played that in 4 when that came out, which is essentially Forza Battle Royale.
I think I did play a few games, yeah.
Yeah, it's got the playground mode. I can't remember exactly what it's called, chat. Please let me know. Where you can essentially make your own, edit's maybe not the right word, but you can kind of create your own sort of races, and you can edit the environment by adding ramps, and you can create your own modes and things like that, which is pretty cool. So there's going to be a lot of customization from that perspective. And then, where do they go next? They could go to Japan or something like that. And I think, again, that just, again, is a complete fresh take on it. So I think that's a really good point by Shizno. And then finally, actually, no, you already read out the comment from Pirate anyway. Said,
yes,
kind of part of the game as well. So I think that's everything from chat pucks.
Brilliant. No, thanks a lot for that, Scott. I'm going to jump straight into topic 2, actually, because again, we are still on the topic of Forza Horizon, because this has been its main kind of starting point as a topic as a whole. So there has been some really interesting discussion, actually, both on our Discord server and through multiple streams of conversation on Twitter and the like. And this is about Game Pass and early access. So there has been a number of comments and conversations that I've seen, as I just said, about, we're all, as a Game Pass, especially for a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, that seems to be an important detail a lot of people like to touch upon, that why should we then have to pay more to get even earlier access to the game anyway? Is this fair? And what does when Xbox say, game is going to come out day and date, day one on Game Pass, and then we're seeing early access things like this. There's a lot of comments about, is this fair? What does day one even mean anymore? Is it really, is it becoming more vague or ambiguous what they mean by day and date? And there's been a lot of kind of back and forth that I've seen, and really interesting stuff as well. So I'm very interested to see to get the panels and yourself, Chad. Let us know what you think as this topic goes on. But I really want to see what the panel think about this and what your general thoughts are, and whether or not this is something in terms of having to pay money to get earlier access when it comes to Game Pass anyway. Is this going to be an ongoing trend? This is something that Microsoft will do for every other future big AAA game they're going to bring out. So I'm going to start with Scott first, because I know, Scott, you have some pretty big opinions on this, I believe. So what are your...
Stubbs.
So, yeah, I saw some interesting back and forth between yourself and Stubbs on our Discord. That was really, really interesting and engaging to watch, as I say. But I've also seen stuff online as well. So, do you reckon this is something that Microsoft will adopt in the future? Again, let's maybe take Fable as an example, just because it's come up already. Are we going to get to a point when Fable's coming out day and date, but no, you can get early access to that if you pay for whatever else? But I suppose I should add on before I do let you loose, Scott, is I think one of the details I did see that maybe got missed is people aren't just paying money to get the standard game early access. They're also paying for, I believe, a number of DLC packs, as well as the equivalent of the battle. Yeah, equivalent of the battle pass or whatever it is. So yeah, you're not just paying for early access to the game, which you're going to get through Game Pass anyway. You're actually paying for a substantial amount of extra content to accompany what would be your standard Game Pass gameplay. So yeah, Scott, let's roll with you. What are your thoughts on this and early access in general? As is this going to be a thing in the future? Will Microsoft adopt it, or is this potentially just a one-off to sell some DLC alongside a heavily awaited game?
Yeah, so I think just to sort of get it out front and center is I'm not a big fan of the practice personally, because I think what it does, and I think this is something that I'm not a big sort of fan of in general in games, is kind of it's almost monetizing FOMO essentially. People see their friends playing the game before them, they want to jump in, and they're kind of forced almost. Obviously, they still have the choice and the decision, but they have that feeling of they're missing out on something there. All because they didn't pay for the Ultimate Edition. My opinion of it's always kind of been, if the game's ready, then let people play it. I've paid for the game, or it's part of my subscription. Why can't I pay? Now I understand, obviously, they want to add it as a perk to people who are paying the additional premium of the Ultimate Edition. But obviously, as you say, Pugs, you're quite right to point out the early access is just one element of that Ultimate Edition. There's the first two DLCs, there's car packs, there's things like that are included, and the early access is just one perk. But also, this isn't a new practice for Microsoft. They first did it, as far as I can tell, back in, I think it was 2015 with Forza Motorsport 6, and they've done it since with Forza Horizon 3 and 4, and they did it with Gears of War 4 and Gears of War 5. All of these games had Ultimate Editions that granted you early access. So they've been doing it now for the best part of 6 years, if not longer. I didn't go back any further than that, but they've been doing it for some time. So I found it interesting that it became such a big talking point this week, when it's something that they've been doing for years. I think the main issue here is kind of just the language around Game Pass. I think this is one of the first games where Game Pass has been around, where the early access kind of, as you say, kind of makes that day one in Game Pass message a little bit more confusing, I guess, in a sense. But kind of the way that they look at it is essentially you get the standard edition. The standard edition releases on November 9th. And, whether you call last Thursday or next Tuesday the launch date, I think, we kind of still live in this world that's bound by the physical launch of games. The street date, I guess, essentially is November 9th. That's when you can walk into a shop and purchase it. So that's the official release date. And then anything before that is obviously early access. But like I say, it's just not something I'm particularly keen on, just because of that FOMO aspect. And it kind of just, it introduces a way for them to kind of, I guess, monetize just people's anticipation for a game, whether you're interested in DLCs or not. If you want to play it 4 days early, then you've got to pay, what is it? I think it's 80 quid for the Ultimate Edition, maybe more. And then I think it's about 40 quid for the add-ons pack if you're a Game Pass subscribers, which is a significant chunk of money. We're not talking £5-10 here. We're talking kind of almost the price of another full game. But like I say, it's not something that's new. I think we're going to see this going forward. We saw maybe last week that someone on Twitter was able to kind of leak what appeared to be sort of a digital early access bundle for Halo Infinite. And I think the numbers speak for themselves. Over 1 million people have jumped in so far. The vast majority of them will have paid either 40 quid or up to 80 quid for that access. So it's obviously people are willing to pay for it. And on that basis, it's likely to continue. I think what we won't see, though, Pucks, is I think games like Fable, I think single player focused games, I don't think there's any benefit to that there. I think where you'll see is kind of on multiplayer focused games, which is why Forza, Gears, and maybe Halo going forward are likely to have it, and maybe any other multiplayer games going forward are likely to have it. But I think single player focused games aren't likely to see that. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's something that's likely to happen. So but I would love to sort of get everybody else's thoughts on it, because me and Stubbs had a conversation about it in the Discord earlier. To be fair, we were both on the same page. We both agree that we don't like this practice. We kind of had differing opinions on why it's maybe a bad thing or not. But yeah, I would love to get everybody else's thoughts on it. Am I alone in that thought? Because obviously over 1 million people have played it, so they're willing to buy it. Where's everyone else stand?
Oh, before I jump to, I'll maybe bring Luke back in on this one next. But before I do, just to answer what you've just asked there, actually, chat. First of all, as Scott just said, actually, please, I'm seeing some really good conversations already. Please let us know what you think about this. And panel, if you can help me capture some of these, we can read them out near the end of the topic. But I've already seen one here from Wandering Dutch, who says, my opinion, I pre-ordered the full £80 premium edition when it was announced without knowing about the early access. That was a nice bonus announced later. It says, but, and the next message, and I'm afraid I haven't seen the next message, so I can't continue, I'm afraid. Someone please capture that.
No, he's put, I don't see a problem with it. The official release date is still the same, and they still have a business to run and a game to sell. People will still get to play it a couple of days later.
Oh, cool. So what it kind of says to me is that people like, Wandering Dutch, among many others, are, you were going to buy anyway. So as I think I've seen someone else say in the chat, like, do people really even care about this? Does it even matter? And it's like, well, clearly it does because people are talking about it online. So, Luke, what are your general thoughts on the whole early access stuff? I know you said I think yourself and Flat both said that you were very close to getting your credit cards out and jumping in early if you could. But overall, what is your thoughts on this general kind of practice? And as Scott was saying, do you reckon it's likely to be kept to these type of bigger open online games, or would this extend to something like a single player experience in the future? Yeah, what do you think?
It's a very multifaceted topic. I think I pretty much agree with Scott. I don't particularly like it. I think it kind of takes a piss a little bit if you're a quote unquote Game Pass Ultimate subscriber in particular, and you don't get the benefit of an early access to a game. I don't know what's quite ultimate about that. The thing is, I'm kind of half and half of it, because on the one hand, I think for a game like Forza, as Scott said, it's kind of okay to do something like this because it is multiplayer focused. And the way that they've done it, bundling it essentially with a discounted premium pack, and given the history of Horizon DLC, the kind of expansions they do, you will get a great amount of content from those elements of this pack, and I'm sure they'll be well worth the money. Part of me is almost like it's they know what they're doing with this stuff in particular, because they could just sell you a very nominal fee early unlock where you pay a couple of quid just to get access to the game earlier. And I think more people would probably be a little bit happier with that. I certainly would, because I think the thing is, even though I know Forza Horizon 5 is great, I don't know how great it's going to be for me to want to buy the DLC for it, if you see what I mean. To commit to going, okay, well, I'll spend all this money just to get it early. But then if I don't really enjoy it, and I think I'll love it, because I love 4 and the others, but there's still kind of that risk.
Hypothetically, just quickly then, like if there, if that was to be a thing where you can pay a couple of quid to play it early, for you, what is an acceptable maximum limit for that kind of thing?
A couple of quid.
So we're literally talking like what, 2 quid, 3 quid just to
if it was like $4.99 to unlock it early, I'd probably pay that.
Exactly the number I came up with. $4.99 seems reasonable to me. And to be honest,
no extra content, no additions.
Exactly. No extra content,
for just a few extra
early
days.
Access. Yeah, if they decoupled it from packs, I think I'd be a lot more comfortable with the practice of it, because at least then I can go, look, it's 5 quid and I can play it 4 days early. Brilliant. I'm enjoying that. So I don't like, and look, I don't think they're ever going to do that, because what they want you to do is spend as much money as possible in, at first glance. So I don't think that's something that's going to happen. But if it did, I'd be more comfortable with it. I can see, as I agree with Scott, I think they will use it for multiplayer games in particular. I'm very uncomfortable with it becoming practice going forward for all their major releases if they start to trot this out for single player games, because then you're getting into the position where people could, and Halo is bound to be one of these. If that's a 4-day early access, people are going to finish the campaign before that 4 days is over. And if then you have social media and YouTube littered with spoilers because people have played to unlock the game early, I have a real issue with that, issue. And, on games like maybe if they did this with Starfield, how many people are going to finish in 4 days? Not many, probably, but some people will. For linear campaigns like Halo's that, they'll run 10, 15 hours, lots of people are going to finish it in that time, if that's part of the early access element, which presumably it is. I really don't like that. And I think, some people in particular, with all the will in the world, are very insensitive to that sort of stuff on Twitter. So I think it's fine for a game like Forza Horizon, because what are you going to spoil for me, right? No, you're not going to spoil
scenery.
Anything. The scenery, oh, it's got cars in it, wow.
And a cactus.
But if you're the cactus, the multiple cacti. but when it becomes like a single player game, I really don't like it at all. And then the element of FOMO is ramped up significantly in those types of games, because you're like, okay, well, actually, I really need to buy this, not only because I really want to play it, but because I don't want to get spoiled before I actually get to play it. So that's the issue I have, and I really don't want them to do that for single player led games. We're going to see how that plays out, presumably with Halo, because it looks like they're going to do it for that. But it's a real annoyance, because it's essentially, we had this for stuff like some single player games last year, like The Last of Us Part 2, and that had some other leaks generally, but street dates were being broken for that game, and spoilers were cropping up everywhere all the time. It was really hard to dodge, actually. And although these kind of things, they are and aren't street breaks, like they're not in the strict sense of the word, they're not, but they are people getting the game early. So, and the effect is all the same. So that's it. That's the issue I have. So, multiplayer games or games that aren't single player driven, no, I don't like it, but I've got no real issue with it. I wish they'd decouple the early access from a premium pack. To make it cheaper for people, and just so if you want to pay just for the early access, you can do great. Don't want it to become a trend for single player games that Microsoft make, even extending to stuff like Fable. Do not, because that's obviously going to be single player driven. Do not want that at all.
I think I can't see a world where I think Fable and games that are purely single player. I don't ever see a world where that has it. I think the difficulty in the gray area is games like Halo and games like Gears, that multiplayer and single player are almost equal parts of the game. And I've just said I don't like the practice, but I will hold my hands up and I will say, if Halo Infinite does end up having this early access bundle, I will pay whatever it is to access it, for two reasons. First of all, Luke is absolutely right, the story side of things. I'm someone that's quite invested in the Halo. Just before this show, I was reading the Halo book, and I really don't want to have whatever 343 you've done with the story, good or bad. I don't want that to be spoiled. I want to experience it myself. So I really don't want to live in a world where that's being spoiled. And I think part of the problem is, in this world that we live in, people are bastards and they go out their way to spoil it for people as well. If you remember, there were Halo campaign leaks going out from the original technical preview that went out, because I think some story elements were leaked from the campaign. And even if you made efforts to go out the way, people were DMing them on Twitter to people who were predominantly Xbox users, simply just to be a bit of a bastard and spoil it for them, which is super frustrating. And you can't help it. If people are going to be like that, people are going to be like that. But I don't want to be in a situation where that happens. But also with a multiplayer game like Halo, or I guess any other multiplayer game that you're going to play with friends, if your friends have it, you don't want to be in a position where you want to miss out. And I certainly don't want to be in a position where I miss out on playing Halo with my mates. So I know for a fact that I'll buy it. The interesting thing with Halo is what they bundle in, because you're right. Look, it's kind of, you've got this Ultimate Edition. It comes with the DLCs. The DLCs for Forza historically been fantastic. 4 and 3's DLCs were amazing. What did they do with Halo? Because the multiplayer, we know that all the DLC for the multiplayer is going to be effectively free. New maps, mods, things like that. We know that's going to be part of like the live service game. So maybe they bundle in the battle pass or some currency to spend. The single player, they've not really spoken too much about the sort of plans for the single player in terms of, are they going to have story campaigns and things like that. Maybe that is something that's included, but that's not quite clear. But I'm not too sure if anybody knows. How did it work for Gears? Because I think Gears 5 essentially had that issue, Luke, because the Ultimate Edition had early access. It wasn't only the multiplayer, so the story obviously was, people were able to access that, and that was a fairly short story, about 10 hours or so. Easily could be done in two settings, well before the official release date. With Halo, I would hope if they do it, they kind of limit it to the multiplayer, especially with it kind of being almost two different games, where the multiplayer is it's essentially a separate game. I think, I don't know if they're going to have two different launches or not, but it's essentially a separate part of the game. So I hope if they do it for Halo, it is limited to the multiplayer side of things. But even then, that's still, I'm still not a big fan.
Here's a quick one then for you, Scott, before I move on to Flap. So I've just seen a comment here earlier from Pyro who says, with the Halo bundle, I think it should only be the online that gets early access and not the campaign. So, is that okay? Given it's a free-to-play game anyway, like, is that okay? Like, because otherwise it's almost like, well, where's the line and where does it stop? And then what becomes too much and then what's acceptable? It's like, it seems like one of those things that could very quickly become very blurred depending on people's perception of the practice, if that makes sense. And whether or not, because obviously people are, doing well for themselves, got pockets of money, can dump it, just put all their money into it, and they can afford it, they love to do it. That's not a problem. That's fine. And then of course there's the other side of the coin where people, maybe struggle for money, but gaming is their lifelong hobby. They can't invest all the time, but they really want to play. Can't afford to jump in early. So, do you know what I mean? It's. I feel like in a way, like, what is the solution? Is there really one apart from just not doing it? But I don't know because
I don't think there's a solution, Pucks. I don't because I guess it depends on whether you look at it as a problem. Obviously you're speaking on the panel, but maybe not fans of it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a problem. You look at Horizon 5, and over 1 million people seem to say it's okay. So what does my opinion mean at the end of the day? It's ultimately whether it's kind of successful and whether the financials outweigh any sort of negative PR. And to be fair, I haven't actually seen an awful lot of negativity around it. My opinion sort of aside, I don't think too many people have been that pissed about it. I think, people who are annoyed are maybe just kind of like quietly annoyed, maybe like myself. It's not like there's a massive uproar on social media or anything.
I think that's an important thing, though, isn't it? Because there are, I think it's quite easy for people to forget that, there are many more people exist that are gaming fans than just Twitter or every other, social platform. And I can, maybe there isn't, maybe you're right in what you say, but at the same time, you can't rule out that there are loads of people that are going, oh, for Christ's sake, why have I got to pay extra? And that's sod that. I'll just wait till next week, But then again, that then brings back to the question of, well, if you weren't a big fan of it enough to pay for it in the first place, then you wasn't the target for that, surely.
Yeah, so, but I think that's maybe part of the problem, Pucks. I think that's maybe part of the problem that you see there, where it's kind of like there's almost this sense of like, oh, if you're a big fan of this game, then you should be paying more to get access. I think that's maybe part of the problem, because if I pay 50 quid, or if I pay 90 quid, or if I pay £8 a month or £12 a month, or whatever the Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate prices are, that one doesn't make me more of a fan than the other, especially when you consider a lot of people's sort of financial circumstances are different. Just because somebody can't afford the game doesn't mean they're less of a fan than somebody who can. And I think that's where definitely it introduces that element of FOMO for those people who can't. It's kind of like, well, they're missing out on the playing their favorite franchises, or maybe experiencing the story, or playing with their friends, all because they simply couldn't afford the ultimate edition, which is a significant expense as well. Like, we're not talking about sort of the 4 or 5 quid that we theorized earlier. Kind of, it is a significant investment, and I think that's part of the problem. But ultimately, it's kind of like, are people willing to pay it? And they seemingly are. I mean, they've been doing it for 6 years now. I can't see a world where they stop it for their multiplayer games. So, I think with Halo, like I say, if they're going to do it, which it seems they are, I would hope that they limit it to the multiplayer, just to avoid the scenario that Luke spoke about. But we'll have to wait and see what actually they announce about it. But regardless of maybe what we say, it looks like it's here to stay. I don't see a world where this isn't a thing. And if they weren't originally planning on doing it for Halo, they will see these numbers from this weekend, and they would absolutely be saying, right, we now need to do that for Halo, because the numbers are ridiculous. Over 1 million people, and the game's not even out yet. And it's obviously just another way of sort of monetizing Game Pass users as well. So yeah, it's a practice that's here to stay. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what side of the fence you stand at.
Right, Flap, I haven't forgot about you, sorry. I'm going to come to you right now. But before I do, I've just sent a number of comments of people saying regarding the Gears 5 stuff you brought up, Scott. In that it was you had to get Game Pass Ultimate. If you was a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, then you had early access. And that also gave you access to the Terminator skin, I think it was, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you could buy the Ultimate Edition, or if you weren't a Game Pass subscriber. So essentially, the Gears 5 was kind of like completely different to kind of what they've done with every other game. So essentially, Game Pass owners got access to Gears 5 Standard Edition. Game Pass Ultimate owners got access to Gears 5 Ultimate Edition, which included like additional content. It included early access. Obviously, it ended up including the Hive Busters DLC, so that's why Game Pass Ultimate users got access to that. But if you weren't a Game Pass subscriber, you could buy the Ultimate Edition for however much it was to get early access as well.
That's cool. Right, Flap, I'm going to come to you now. Sorry, I've not heard from you for a little while. Great chat, by the way, in the chat. Thank you very much. Keep your comments coming, and we'll store some up, and we'll probably read some out as we reach the end of this topic. But Flap, there's been a lot of discussion so far regarding this. Quite polarizing in a healthy way through chat and what the panel was saying. What are your thoughts on this exactly? Is this something that you reckon will, is it long term? Is it going to stay? Is it just for multiplayer? Given what everyone has said so far. What are your general thoughts on Game Pass and early access?
Well, it's all been said, to be honest. I agree.
Anything you'd like to add to it, in your own opinion? Yeah.
Well, not particularly, really. I mean, I'm not a fan of the practice. To me, it feels a little bit underhand. It feels like a chink in Game Pass's armor almost, and I don't like that because I'm surprised people over on the PlayStation side of things haven't really used this as a kind of a grenade to lob back about this sort of the pricing structure of Game Pass and stuff. If this money is needed to kind of help fund these games or sort of boost revenue, then it just seems like a shady practice to me. And to be honest, let's face it, people are going to fall into two categories: people that were going to buy the premium packs anyway, and like you say, the early access was a bonus. Absolutely fine, no problem with that. I fell into the latter. I was the one that kind of the reason I was going to buy it and get my credit card out was because of the FOMO aspect, if I'm honest, and it is a.
So you didn't care about the additional content that you would have gotten?
I would say I didn't care, and it's kind of a nice to have. But I'm with Luke. I'm not really sure if I'm going to like this game yet. So to fork out that for a game, and to be fair, chances are I probably am going to love it. But yeah, it's just I don't know. It was one stretch too far for me, to be honest. And like I say, I'm pleased I managed to stave off the fear of missing out side of things and just wait till Tuesday, basically. But I just think there's a bigger picture. And like you say, if this is, I think it kind of works just about with Forza. And I think us on the panel kind of agree with that. I don't like it, but it kind of just about works with Forza. If it's going to be extended into other games, and we need to be looking, as a community, we need to be looking at the bigger picture here, because we've got some huge games coming. We've got Starfield coming, we've got Fable, we've got Avowed, we've got some huge games coming. Do we really want this to be the practice going forwards? I don't really know, to be honest. I don't think we do. And as Luke said, particularly for single player games, that can absolutely ruin a game before it's been released. I think this game's been ready for a little while as well. I think that might be one of the reasons they did this, because I know people like Randall Thor and Dealer Gamer. They got some early access codes and stuff, and I don't think they tend to get early access codes for lots of Microsoft games and stuff, to be fair. So I think this game has actually been in a state where it's been kind of ready for a little while. I would be surprised if Halo, perhaps the multiplayer side of things, can be ready a little bit early. I'd be surprised if the campaign will be. I think they're going to try and take that to the wire, particularly as it's launching without certain aspects and stuff. But yeah, if games are in a ready state, then I think for a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, then it should be available for everyone. If I'm honest, that's my opinion. It does also blur the lines of day and date and when a game is officially released and stuff. Yeah, it just feels like a shady practice, and I don't like it. Like I say, I fully appreciate if people had already paid for the Ultimate Edition and it came as a nice surprise, then absolutely fine. But I wasn't in that camp. I was someone that nearly succumbed to the fear of missing out. And to be honest, it was only the fact I'm playing Like a Dragon that kept me away from it, to be honest. I just literally didn't have enough time. But had it not have been for that, I might have succumbed to it, and I would probably be hating myself for it right now, because I don't want to be part of the problem. And like I say, while it works for Forza Horizon 5, do we want Microsoft to think, actually, going forwards, this is a great revenue generator for all of our first-party titles, single player or multiplayer? So I just hope it doesn't send the wrong message to them, and they are very, very selective with the games they do this to.
No, I agree with that. I suppose this might sound like a brag. I don't mean it that way. But again, because I'm not a big racing... I loved 4, as I said before, Forza Horizon 4. But and I've been loving what I've seen about this game. But it's never a game that when I saw the trailers and stuff, I never looked at it and thought, oh my Christ, this is a day one, I must be playing this immediately kind of thing. So for me, originally I got my dates mistaken. I saw people were jumping on this Friday, and I thought, oh, it's coming out on the 5th now, and then oh no, it's an early access thing. So but for me, I wasn't interested enough to jump in, so I'm happy to wait. But then equally, I know that as soon as Halo Infinite drops, I will probably not be playing this game anymore. That's kind of where it sits with me. As amazing as it is, and as much as everyone loves it, I mean, I may well jump into it again in the future. But, as we always say, there's always new stuff coming out that I'm more looking forward to than I have been for this game, at least, in particular. So this will be enjoyment for me for maybe the 3 weeks that it is up until Halo Infinite, and that's about it. So, assuming that, again, what everyone's been saying, I've seen a lot in chat as well, back and forth. If people have been jumping in early solely from a FOMO perspective and just wanting to play early, but ultimately wasn't too bothered about the extras, then yeah, I do think it is quite sad, especially if you know that, again, other games are coming out in the future, like Halo Infinite, that people maybe know that they are going to play for a long time, and then they're not playing Neville anymore. In a way, that's a waste of money, but that's not the company's fault or problem necessarily, or maybe it is. I don't know, but they're banking that. Why do they care? But that's been a really interesting topic, actually. Really interesting, more, and it went on for a bit longer than I thought it would. Before I do move on, actually, I would like to ask the panel, if you don't mind, to read out some comments. I've seen a lot of good back and forth on this, quite mixed opinions in the chat that I've seen. Flap, actually, if you don't mind, I'll ask you. Is there any particular standout comments you've seen regarding this?
Yeah, Pong Soul's kind of come up with a few bits, and it kind of, I kind of agree and kind of disagree in some regards. He's put that the fear of missing out is the responsibility of the individual, not necessarily the company offering, the early access. And obviously, in its nuts and bolts, as a statement, that is absolutely correct. I guess it's the fact, but it's the fact that they added it to the ultimate pack, if that makes sense. That's the bit that I guess I don't like so much. If it, like you say, if it was $4.99, $5 as a standalone early access thing, I would have paid that, without even thinking twice about it. It's just kind of milking that extra money. And like I say, talking of the two camps, people that would have bought the Ultimate Pack and will get the absolute most out of the DLC, absolutely fine, knock your socks off. I'm guessing there is an element of people that have been hooked into the early access and paid the extra money for that. It just feels underhand, to be honest. So, while I kind of agree with Pong Soul, and he's absolutely right, it still feels like it's an underhand way of doing it, I guess.
Yeah, I think I've seen some other comments in the chat, again, Pong Soul, this isn't a dig or anything, so please don't take it personally. It's it's great to have different opinions. Is what this is all about. But I think I did see some comments regarding yes, that statement is definitely 100% true. But then again, the human mind doesn't necessarily work as black and white. That I guess does it. It's a very social aspect to it that may force people possibly unwillingly. But then yes, you're then right, I guess, to then say, well, that's the person's fault. But if the early access didn't exist, this the FOMO aspect wouldn't exist, right? So, what is the right answer? What isn't? There isn't one. Well, maybe there is, but I don't think we're going to define that out today.
I think with that, and I totally see where Pong is coming from, and I think with a lot of this, there's always a line between personal responsibility and what a company is doing to get you to part with your cash. And the issue is, I guess, that for many people are very impressionable. Your average Joe, I might be really strong with, everything in that I buy, and I'm not subject to FOMO at all. But there may be things for me that cause me to have massive FOMO. Hot toys are one of them, for example. For me, and I could be taken advantage of in a way by companies, deliberately kind of cultivating an atmosphere of fear of missing out. Look how great this is, you should get on this now, sort of thing. So and that's advertising 101, right? The personal responsibility element only works if we have no outside influence at all. There's no influence by the company that's trying to get you to part of your cash, but there is. That's the difference. So I do agree, and it just depends on where on that line, that scale from personal responsibility to, being pressured internally, as it were, or externally as well by a company to go and buy the thing. So it's a really interesting topic. There's no right answer. I think, as you say, Pucks, it just depends on where you fall. And I don't think companies are I don't think Microsoft's evil for doing this, right, or anything that. Because this isn't anywhere near as bad as something like Ultimate Team, for example, which is very deliberately set up to prey on impressionable people and say, oh, you're missing out because actually your team's not as good as the other team, so you need to spend cash to make it better. That's completely different from this. So this is on way the far end of the other spectrum for that sort of stuff. This is just an annoyance more than an issue. I would say it's an inconvenience and something that I think for me, I just hope it doesn't become practice in single player stuff. But I'm not that bothered about it in this context.
No, that's fair enough. Sorry, Flap. Is there any more comments you'd like to read out before we move on to our next topic?
No, I think we're pretty much there, to be honest. Like I say, Puxy's just written, if 1 million gamers are playing Forza Horizon 5 now, then Microsoft have pocketed between 40 and 80 million. That's a big chunk of money already recouped from the cost of producing the game, which, yep, absolutely. Like I say, it's going to be a huge revenue generator, but that's what worries me and why they might start to try and push the extents of what they can get away with this, and I just hope they don't. Microsoft to me seem like a very responsible company that's going to probably generate some conversation, but I think particularly with the Xbox division, I don't think they come across as being too underhand, if I'm honest. And this just seems a little underhand to me, and I just hope that they don't, like I say, I just hope they don't press the advantage too strongly when it comes to their first party titles with this kind of thing.
Yeah, if I can maybe just say one more point on Halo as well. It does end up being a thing that they end up trying to sell for Halo. One of the kind of elements that they're kind of heavily leaning into for the multiplayer side of things is their battle pass system and how it differs to other battle passes. Essentially, the main difference between the two is typical battle passes. You've got a season, which could be maybe 3 months long, that you've got to complete the battle pass. So it kind of forces you to play the game. The challenge systems are often weekly, so it's something that you kind of forced to play on the regular to kind of get everything that you've paid for, essentially, with that battle pass. And one of the things that Halo have come out and they've been quite vocal about is the fact that they don't have that. And I think they've even said, because they don't want that FOMO side of things with regards to the battle pass, where you can play it at your own pace and you can still get everything. You don't miss out on anything just because you didn't play the game the same amount as somebody else. And that's something that they're quite heavily preaching. They're really proud of the fact that it's different in that way. And then they're going, potentially, I mean, it seems more or less inevitable at this point, kind of introduce FOMO in a different avenue by having this early access version. So it kind of, it's mixed in a way, isn't it? I guess the messaging, particularly when it comes to Halo. But
I got to be honest though, Scott, I'm absolutely with you, my friend. If they do this for Halo multiplayer, then I will be jumping on board.
Yep.
So I am part of the problem.
Makes me a hypocrite, but
absolutely.
That's why they do it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think any of us are coming from an air of authority or superiority or anything. I am as much a part of the problem as the next person, to be honest. I guess for me, Halo is a much more of a tempting prospect than perhaps Forza Horizon. But yeah, I am very much part of the problem, and I will probably be jumping in. I just hope they're very careful with how they deal with this going forwards.
No, that's very good. Thank you very much, panel, for your comments, and thank you very much, chat, as well. That was a lot more engaging than I thought it was going to be, and that was fantastic. I'll do a quick roll call before I move on to the next topic. So we've got It's Timmy, Pongsol, of course, the Indie Gamer, Stubbs Gaming, Mexico, Dragon Wolf, Parksy, 1972, and I Wandering Dutch was here earlier as well. Thank you all very much for being here. Sorry if I haven't seen anyone.
We had Boom in the chat and Pinky of Legend.
Oh, we did.
Got some, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I've also seen. I saw another new name. It was Seppo as well. I don't think I've seen your name in the chat before. Welcome. Any other names? Nothing more. Oh, there are. I see. Yep, Double Barrel Gaming. I've just seen that. No, thank you all very much for being here. Hope you enjoyed the chat, and I think it's now time to move on to our next topic. So we're now moving away from Forza Horizon. I don't know if it's possible, Flap, to maybe play the 20-minute trailer at all. Don't worry if it's too much of a hassle, but we're now going to move our chat to Elden Ring, because this is a game which has basically been revealed to us and then had nothing more kind of said about it for the longest time. And then I think it was about 3 months ago, we got a bit more of a trailer to kind of see it in a bit more detail. And then 3 days ago, Bandai Namco released a 20-minute long gameplay reveal trailer, which kind of showcased some of the combat, the open world, the traversal. And I have to say, personally for me, I am not a really big Bloodborne / Dark Souls fan. Not because I don't necessarily like the games, I just haven't really given them enough of a chance to play them, really. I think the times when each of the different titles came out, I think there was something else that I was playing at the time, something that I said I'd like to jump to, and then something else came out that I was looking forward to even more. I jumped onto that, and then as of everything else, the gaming landscape moves on, continues, and it's one of those things that just got left behind. And unfortunately, that happened to me pretty much with every title. I think the only time I've played anything of this type of game was probably Dark Souls 1, and only when I played that when it was a Games of Gold way back at the end of the 360 life cycle. So I played about 10 minutes worth of that. I thought it was okay, and then I turned it off and never turned it on again. But so this game, Elden Ring, seems to obviously tick a lot of those boxes. It's made by dare I say it, correct me if I'm wrong, it's made by the same company as Dark Souls. Is that correct?
From Software.
Panel?
From Software.
Oh, no, I'm wrong. Yeah, this is Bandai Namco. But okay, but they have very similar vibes at least, don't they?
No,
it's from Software. Yeah, it's the same.
Oh, it is from Software. Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's published by Bandai Namco.
Yeah.
Sorry, forgive me. I've got my facts all messed up. Yeah, okay, so it is from the same person, or the same developer, and it very much looks that way. But I think one of the things that's gotten me quite excited looking at the trailer is definitely kind of, I mean, I know we've maybe said against it before, but the open world aspect of this and just how, dare I say, vibrant and colourful, but it's a very dark game, yet it has a lot of kind of vibrant feel to it, just from the environment. You know, you've got the big, the massive tree, like a bright glowing tree in the background, and the different kind of environmental elements of the map. You know, like the different light elements everywhere, and there's a lot of there's a lot of instances as well where you see the different enemies and how they interact, how you interact with the environment, and how you traverse as well. Like on your, I don't even know what it's called, some sort of mythical deer creature that can kind of jump on the air and whatever else when it goes downhill. But I was really impressed by it, and something that I would definitely consider playing when it comes out. I did watch all of it. I really liked. I mean, I've got nothing to compare it to, but from what I know of Dark Souls or those kind of games, I'm not too sure if they have much of a stealth element in those. And this trailer kind of tended to lean that, hey, look, you can do the standard action-oriented way, go through the front gate and go through hell to try and beat it all, or you can go these alternate routes and you can do the stealth route, and you have to be really careful and the environments are different. It's like, you know, again, HDR and 4K. There's really dark areas. You have to use your lights, all this kind of stuff. I thought it really interesting. And I think for this one, I'm going to jump to Luke first, because I know you are a massive Bloodborne, Dark Souls fan and those kind of games. I'm assuming you have seen the gameplay trailer, but I will ask, have you seen the trailer? And, you know, has seeing the trailer boosted your excitement for the game? Is it the kind of thing you was expecting to see? Or has anything thrown you by surprise that maybe you thought you did or didn't like? What did you think of it?
Yeah, so I've seen bits of the gameplay trailer. I haven't watched it start to finish, 15 minutes. There's a reason for that, which is that I was already, I mean, as you say, I'm a huge From Software fan. I'm a huge Bloodborne fan, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Sekiro as well, I really enjoyed. And, you know, I was already super hyped for this. Because From Software to me can do no wrong. Like, as long as they keep making stuff like this, then I will buy it. And so I wanted to see a little bit of the open world stuff for this, because that is, you know, it's their first open world game. You know, none of the other games have been like this. Just to see, you know, the traversal and how it works. And I kind of basically skip through elements of it. So I kind of skip ahead. I'd watch like a minute, and then I'd skip ahead a couple of minutes and watch another minute, etc. And I don't really want to see any more, because part of the magic of these games is the exploration and the discovery. And this looks like the most incredible world to explore that I've seen for a long time. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but again, From Software are extremely reliable with this stuff. And Hidetaka.
So have you purposely not seen any of the open world gameplay yet? Then
no, I've seen some of it. So I've seen enough to tell me what's there and how it works. Right. So and that's all I wanted to see. I've seen a couple of bosses that they showed off as well, but again, like the bosses in Souls games they are the best bit, right? They're the bit you look forward to the most because they're just because the thing is with Souls games and From Software in general, their art direction is just astounding. It's just incredible, and that's the imagination of the fantasy worlds that they come up with is second to none. I don't think there's any better developer than them are doing this kind of stuff. So so I saw bits of it. I saw enough, probably about out of the 15 minutes, probably saw 5 or 6 minutes worth, enough to convince me. And I think I said on the Discord that for me, it'll be really, really difficult, even given the gamut of games that are out this year, for stuff to beat this for Game of the Year, in my estimation, if it delivers, right? Obviously, it could be a disaster. I doubt it, but it could be. Because it just looks fantastic. I mean, it just looks incredible. And what I like that they've done, and you were right in touching on it, is every other Souls game apart from Sekiro didn't really have a kind of stealth element. Sekiro was the first one to properly introduce stealth into that world, and so you could, in certain circumstances, you could go in stealthily, or you could attack, or whatever you want to do. In this one, they've really leaned into that more because obviously it's taking place in an open world and there are places you can go where there are encampments and all that kind of stuff. And so they're giving you the choice there to be able to do it. So I really like that. And, I just think that this open world is going to be really special because, again, and this is, I laughed when they opened the map up because it's such a detailed map. And guess what? There's no markers anywhere. There's no outposts. There's no towers. There's no quests.
A lot of people compared it to Breath of the Wild at that point, didn't they? And
it's brilliant. Yeah. It's absolutely brilliant. There's no shit littering the map. It's just, here is the map. You place your own markers, and we'll give you kind of a topography of what's going on, so you can have a look. And in fact, you have to unlock that topography. I think you have to discover, chunks of the map that then illuminate on your map, so to speak. And I absolutely love that. I mean, anybody who's played Breath of the Wild, will know how great the sense of discovery in that game is.
Yeah, definitely.
And this looks like that, but just in a much more fantasy, dark style. And as you said, what surprised me was how colourful it is. It's really bright and vibrant at points, even though underlying all that are these kind of putrid, From Software creatures that always litter them out. Mm-hmm. And then some of the shots, there's a shot, I turned it off immediately after this shot. There's a shot like 8-10 minutes in where he's coming up to one of the, like a castle, and it's just, the atmosphere is just incredible. Like it looks, I was just like, I don't want to see any more of that place because I just want to, experience that for myself. So I would just be shocked if this wasn't an absolutely incredible game. And I think, I don't know how many more new fans it'll win in terms of, if you don't like the Souls formula, I don't think this would particularly change that for you. It might do to some extent because it's more open world-ish, it's more open in general. I think some of the things about Souls games that can be a little frustrating for people is that if you're really having difficulty with it, sometimes there's nowhere else to go. You've just got to persevere. And a lot of people love that about Souls games, but some people hate it because it's like, well, I wish I could just do something else and maybe come back to it. In this game, it looks like you can do that, right? You could fully come up against something you're like, I cannot, I'm just not having, I'm not able to beat this right now. And you can go off in the world and find something else to do. So I think that might, help for people, but I don't care what other people think about it because I just can't wait to play it. I just can't wait to play it. It just looks incredible. Absolutely amazing.
What platform will you be playing it on, Luke? Just out of interest? PC, I'm guessing.
PC. Yeah, because Yeah, 4K 60 and all that bells and whistles stuff. Maybe higher actually, because.
Yeah, I was going to say actually, one of the things that again, for someone who's not really a Souls fan at all, apart from maybe playing 10 minutes worth years ago, what I really liked about the trailers when they, again, like the scale of things. I don't know whether or not it's like that in the other ones, but particular scene where you're going through some sort of outlet of a cave, and then there's like this enormous castle fort thing, like on the edge of a cliff, and you're about to go in and scale it. That's the one I was talking
about. Yeah, it's that dark fantasy kind of scale of, you know, foreboding. You're very small in comparison to this thing. It is a typical Souls thing to do. Like, you know, you're a tiny little pawn in this world that is out to just obliterate you, and that's kind of where a lot of the accomplishment from the game comes from. You know, that you conquer these gigantic forts. And
I was going to ask you a question then, actually, because I've seen a lot of chat so far, kind of saying a few people saying, "Oh my god, I'm Halo hyped for this," which is cool, great to hear. But then I've also seen a lot of people say, you know, yes, it looks great, but I've never really been a Souls fan. I don't think I'll do it. And you kind of half answered it during your initial words anyway. But, you know, if you was to kind of, like, what is it exactly that you like about the Souls game? Is it the challenge? Is it the darkness of, you know, environment, the world, the design, whatever? Like, you know, if you was to try and convince me or the panel or the chat, to play, like, what part, why should we try it, kind of thing? Like, why should we be convinced to try Elden Ring or something else?
Yeah, what's the hook?
What's the hook? So I think the hook, it's a difficult question actually, because I think Soulsborne games have kind of a feeling about them. And it's really hard to describe. I think if I was to say, you know, why should someone try it, I would say kind of, and this sounds a bit counterintuitive, but kind of almost ignore the fact that it's going to be difficult, right? Because it is going to be difficult. They always are. And you should just go into it as a kind of, you know, trying to experience the world that's being created and leaning into that, you know, the art direction, visual, sound, all of that stuff is the reason I think initially attracted people to the game, as it were, or the, you know, the kind of Soulsborne genre in general, especially from software stuff. Once you're in it, I think the thing that takes over is the perseverance of it all, you know, the challenge and being able to conquer what sometimes seems like, you know, impossible odds. I think for some people that's the exact thing that puts them off, and I don't think you'll ever change from that, if you see what I mean. I think the only way you change from that is if you start actually beating bosses and getting through the game, because it becomes extremely addictive, right? Where you're like, no, I really want to do this. And I think the thing with Souls games, and it's probably the thing that people overlook sometimes when they go into it and they play a couple of bosses and they get destroyed, is that Souls games aren't unfair. They're all about trying to teach you about the mistakes you're making. You know, the bosses aren't telegraphed, you know, for the most part. There's very few. I think there was one in one of the Bloodborne DLCs, which was the most horrific moving boss I've ever seen, and it was really hard to telegraph. But, you know, people just think, well, it's too unfair, right? I'm just getting destroyed, and don't really stick with it to understand the nuances of how you're supposed to move and how you're supposed to fight and how you're supposed to, you know, wait for your openings and that sort of stuff. And for some people, it will never fall into a camp of something they want to play. But I think if you stick with them and you start beating bosses and you start exploring the world, you'll become addicted, as many people have, and then you start to see the broader context of, wow, this is beautiful. The story's really abstract but really interesting, and you know, there's the RPG elements which are a big part of it, right? You know, armors and weapons and building your character's stats and all that sort of stuff. So it's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be easy, so I know it's quite open-ended. But
I think the thing is, if you look at that trailer and think this looks incredible, you should play it. Right? I think you should put out of your mind that, oh, it's a Souls game, because I think if you've got the money and you look at it and you really think this looks incredible, then go and pick it up. You know, wait to see what other people say about it, for sure, because there's never a surefire bet with games. They could come out really badly. I don't think it's going to be the case here, because From Software haven't made a bad game. But just go and watch the trailer, and if it interests you, I think go and pick it up.
Where do you stand on difficulty modes in those types of games? look? Because I think there's quite a big discussion around it, and I think the difficulty is one of the things that puts new players off. And speaking personally, it's kind of one of the things that, you know, I'm not a big fan of just beating my head against something. I appreciate, obviously, you know, there's patterns to learn and things like that, but obviously that maybe comes or is a little bit more natural to some people, particularly those who are maybe a little bit more familiar with the genre than someone who's completely new to it. And I don't think Bloodborne, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, I don't think any of those games have difficulty mods. And I think a lot of the discussion I've seen in the past has largely been around, well, it's the creative intention or vision behind the game that this is how it is. But maybe the element of a difficulty mode would make the game maybe a little bit more accessible. But then I see kind of like the diehards who are like, absolutely not, you can't have difficulty in these types of games because the difficulty is so fundamental in part of the game's design that it would kind of almost break it, if that makes sense. Where do you stand on that yourself?
I don't like the idea of, you know, when as you alluded to, when people say, well, they shouldn't change this at all because it's the intention of the developer to make this deliberately difficult. I think it is the intention of, and it always has been the intention of From Software, to make their games very challenging. And they're, you know, challenging for story reasons, for sure. You know, again, you know, going back to the point I was making about you're a very tiny bit of this world that wants to kill you, and that's the kind of constant theme across all of the Soulsborne games. But I personally don't have any issue with the idea of From introducing a secondary mode, which is easier, you know, because I think it doesn't affect the people that, you know, want to get their asses handed to them and want to persevere. Like, it doesn't make any difference to those people because, you know, you can play it as the director intended it. But I think for people who either struggle with these games or perhaps, you know, and there's a really kind of bigger moral, ethical point almost about, you know, accessibility in these sorts of games. They aren't accessible by the nature of them. Really, they're not, you know, because they require very fast reflexes sometimes, and, you know, that's difficult for some people. I don't have an issue with people, you know, wanting an easier mode, because ultimately, is it going to affect me? No. And it means more people get to experience the world and the story and the art. And if that means that some of the difficulty has to be sacrificed on a mode, I don't see why that's an issue, because we shouldn't gatekeep games behind difficulty levels. I mean, it's ridiculous. Whether From do that or not is a different thing, and I think, you know, it's commendable to some extent if they want to just be like, no, this is what we think is the way that we want you to experience the game. But equally, you know, it's not for everyone, and difficulty is always one of those things that can really turn people off, and for some people it's just not possible to get through the game. So I think with this one, they look like whilst they don't have a different mode, there's stuff in, and they've increasingly done this where there is stuff you can do in the game to make it easier. So whether that's through, you know, the online summoning system where you can get people in to help you with bosses, you know, which are often the most difficult part. And even though the bosses scale with people, it's a lot easier or somewhat easier to beat them when you have, you know, someone aggroing it and, you know, you're in the back chopping its legs down or whatever, and it's not really paying much attention to you. And they've got these summons in this game now, which I think they showed off in the gameplay reveal, where you can kind of summon, you know, free NPCs to help you fight, and it's like a spell, and they've said there's many different ones. So they are trying to introduce that element of, okay, if you need help in the game, it's going to be there, but I don't think they've committed to going, well, actually, you know, if you really need help, here's a separate you know, easier mode. And it'll be interesting to see if they do. I'm sure the backlash from the hardcore community will be immense if they do, but as long as it doesn't affect the experience for someone else in terms of you can pick how you want to play it, I don't have any issue at all.
I think the thing that's kept me, the thing that's kept me away from them now is just because I'm guessing I'm still learning kind of what gamer I am, and I get frustrated having to keep doing the rinse and repeat thing, just trying to sort of systematically learn the boss's moves and you know, having a look at the the tells and the reads that you get off of the bosses of what attack they're going to do next and stuff. And I just hate that feeling of just, chipping away at this huge block, dying every time, starting again. I just get so irritated and frustrated with that it's such a massive speed bump for me to get over that it's just never really got me into I've just never got over that part. And like you say, got into that, got past my first boss and got that buzz that you get from beating it, to be honest. But I'm quite pleased to see that there is a co-op element to Elden Ring. I'm also pleased to see that it is open world, because like you say, I think one of the other things that those sort of games do is they do box you into the fight. Yeah. So like you said, there is very little room for either escape or maneuver. So you can't game the game almost. It's very formulaic, and you have to do what the game prescribes or what it wants you to do, which I'm kind of fine with, but it's just the learning process that I find so painful. And I wished I didn't, because I absolutely love the atmosphere from these games. They look so moody, and there's the Demon's Souls on the PS5. It looks such a gorgeous game. It is one of the most atmospheric games I can describe, and I think Elden Ring did that for me as well. It looked really atmospheric, and we've all seen a trillion open world fantasy games before, but there was just something about that one that just felt ever so slightly different, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but it was a very appealing world to want to be in. It's just, like I say, getting over those boss battles, and like you say, I think, and again, it's done on purpose, but it's so daunting, isn't it, when, like you say, you're such a tiny little thing, and you're battling this monster, or this boss that's got 6 different kinds of attack, and you don't necessarily know which one's coming next until you've got the experience of learning it all. It is very overwhelming at first, but I was really pleased with what I saw with Elden Ring. I would love it to be my gateway game into those sort of games. But I guess we'll have to just kind of see. I know some of the community have actually been complaining around that they kind of keep reusing the same animations and stuff. I don't think it's visually blown some people away, is it?
No, but I mean, I think again, it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's a cross-gen game, so it was never going to be a big next-gen showpiece or anything like that. It's also their first open world game, so that will dictate how it looks to some extent. But I think that what and it's the case for all From the Software games, apart from Demon's Souls when it was remade by Bluepoint, as you said, which visually is still up there, one of the best next gen things so far, is what these games lack in kind of graphical fidelity they make up for with art direction, because they look stunning, not because they're visually stunning, although I think their engine's getting better and better, and certainly Elden Ring looks really nice visually, but it's just everything else that goes around that. So the use of color, the use of design, the artistry that goes into the environments and all of that sort of stuff. That's the thing that I think is stunning about the games. In much the same way that The Legend of Breath of the Wild is a stunning looking game, but it's not really because of the visuals. It's because of the art behind it, and the scale of stuff and the use of color. Like, it just pops, and I think this does the same thing.
That's really cool. No, thanks for your input on that, Luke. I know we've all asked you a lot of questions as our resident Souls gamer and fan. I know, Flap, you've kind of said mainly your piece. Do you have anything else you wanted to add at all before we move on to the next topic? And I know, Scott, as well, you've asked a few questions with Luke, sorry. And I'll start with you, Flap, first, actually. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I move on to Scott for his final thoughts?
Not really. It's going to be interesting to see it on the Xbox platform.
That's a good point, actually, because it's primarily PlayStation, isn't it, for the most part? Or am I wrong?
It's coming to
Dark Souls have been multi-platform. It's just
sorry, okay.
It's only Bloodborne and Demon's Souls.
Oh, okay, sure.
But it just makes me wonder if they could get that onto Game Pass, that would be a massive coup. And to be honest, if they did, I would be absolutely bought into Elden Ring. Am I going to part with $70 for it? £70? Don't know. Be interesting.
Sure. How about yourself, Scott? I know you asked a few questions of Luke already, but any other closing thoughts before I move on regarding Elden Ring? Something you think you would jump into regarding after Luke's comments? Sorry,
nothing really to add. Obviously, I'm really sort of pleased to hear sort of Luke's excitement, for that the game seemingly seems to be living up to the hype so far. It's not my type of game, if I'm being completely honest. Those styles of games, I haven't really been able to get into Dark Souls in the past, so I kind of don't share that excitement. But it's just because that's not typically my genre. The closest I kind of got to was I played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order earlier this year, but that was kind of part of that is more the Star Wars and sci-fi setting is something that I'm a little bit more interested in than the fantasy setting. I think everything that Luke said in terms of the atmosphere and how it looks and the art direction, I agree with all of that entirely. I wrote down 3 notes earlier today on Elden Ring. I'll just read them verbatim as I've written them down. So boss battles looked fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
The battle music in particular was fantastic. The rest of it was a bit meh. Those were the 3 notes I literally wrote down because I did think the boss design was great, but then kind of went the rest of it kind of didn't really do an awful lot for us. But that's because I'm not a big fan of that game. That's not a knock on the game. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic, and for people who like those types of games. The reason I asked the difficulty question was because that's probably something that would maybe make me more interested if I knew it had an easy mode where I just want to go and I just want to experience this world. I just want to take in the story, take in that atmosphere without the frustration of beating my head against the wall, being able to knock it down a few notches in difficulty. That might make this interesting, as I can jump in and I can experience everything that Luke's just said there. But without that, I know for a fact I'm going to run it at difficulty. This is not a game I play very often. I'll happily admit there was once or twice, even in Jedi Fallen Order, that I knocked down the difficulty just because I wanted to get through it. I wasn't happy to just keep the second sister, whatever her name was. She pissed me off a few times. Yeah, that's not something I kind of want to do for a full game. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I saw a few comments from Indy as well to me saying, hey, but you liked Hollow Knight, and that's got like Souls-esque like boss battles and stuff, which, yeah, I guess so. But then mainly as Luke said as well, I'm sitting here saying that I've watched the trailer and oh wow, it looks really cool and interesting, and I'm really taken by it. Then if the recommendation is remove what you currently think of a Souls game and just try it and play it, then I think that's what I'll do. But no, thank you everyone. Before is there any comments? Sorry, Luke, if you don't mind, Luke.
Well, no, Pongsoul wrote kind of summed up what I was trying to say. Is Pongsoul's tried Souls games multiple times over the years, and they are not for him. He loves watching the others play them because of the style. However, watching the gameplay of Elden Ring, he's going to give it another go on day one. And yeah, it's kind of how I feel about it, to be honest.
Yeah, no worries. Is that all for comments?
We've got quite a few. Shizno Elite reveal
just a few before I move on.
Yeah, no, the reveal made me even more hyped. Like Halo hyped as well. I think you mentioned that. What else have we got? Yeah, and Pyro M also mentioned about the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order kind of being Souls-esque, which Scott mentioned.
No worries. No, that's great. Thank you, everybody. I'm aware of time, so maybe try and squeeze in 2 topics. We'll see how this next one goes, but I'm going to move straight on now. So another bit of different news now. So PlayStation stuff now and Devolver Digital. So it was announced earlier in the week that PlayStation have now put more money into Devolver Digital and now have a minority stake in Devolver. And I thought this is quite interesting.
I believe.
5%, yeah. So pretty small. Well, by a number that sounds small, but that 5% is probably quite a large chunk of money.
The company was valued at $1 billion.
50 million.
Yeah, well, there you go then. So my interest in this was mainly from, alongside what I believe most of us currently think about PlayStation anyway, in that they don't really, yes, there are indie games on the platform, of course, but they don't necessarily cater for them as alongside their AAA offerings. They're very much, or quadruple A as well, if you want to go into that territory. But they're very much focused on those massive big blockbuster hits and stuff that we've mentioned in the past. But I was interested in this because I kind of thought, Devolver are very much known for publishing, larger scale indies, arguably to some extent. But they do publish indie titles as well as and develop some in house as well, and a lot of which are very well loved and are successful across all different platforms. So this got me interested because, given all that stuff, of what I just said, is this, and the question to the panel mainly, is this PlayStation's kind of beginnings or innings to maybe start looking into and investing more, not just in an indie publisher, but is this their way to try and get more indie content first and foremost on PlayStation? I think I'm going to take this to yourself, Scott, first, if you don't mind. Have you seen this news? Did you manage to read much about it? And what are your general thoughts on this? Do you reckon, given PlayStation's general messaging that they're mainly focusing on their big quadruple A, triple A first party blockbusters, do you reckon this is maybe their beginnings to maybe look into and focus more time on indie offerings on the PlayStation platform and giving them a bit more focus and light?
I'm not too sure, Pucks, if I'm being completely honest. I looked into it essentially just for some additional context. Devolver essentially went public on the London Stock Exchange last week. So I think the timing, well, it's not a timing thing. It was just they went public. I assume pretty much anybody could just buy the shares if they wanted. I'm not too sure how that stuff works. Maybe Luke can elaborate a little bit more on that if he's more familiar. But essentially, they went public, and Sony took the opportunity to make an investment, a minority investment in that time. But I don't necessarily see this being in any way sort of, or I guess it could be maybe indirectly linked to maybe their strategy for indie titles going forward. But I don't necessarily see it having like a direct link. Like, I don't think we're going to see more Devolver games exclusive to PlayStation going forward because of this minority investment. I think what this is just Sony being a business, just seeing an opportunity to potentially earn more money and taking that opportunity. Sony made some investments fairly recently. They made quite a significant investment in Epic Games, two, I think, once earlier this year and then another one in 2020. I think they've almost invested about $500 million into Epic Games, which I think crazily's netted them about 2% of the value of the business, which is staggering to think about it. They obviously made an investment in Discord fairly recently as well. And I know obviously each investment's likely to be different, but I don't think we've noticed anything significant off the back of those investments in terms of game output or exclusivity or anything like that. I kind of think this is just more of the same. It's just an opportunity for Sony to invest in what is a very good publisher of games. Sort of Devolver are kind of up there with Annapurna, I think, in a way, in terms of like, if Devolver are publishing it, you're probably interested because they publish so many great, particularly indie titles. But I don't see this having sort of a significant impact sort of on the ongoing strategy in terms of indie games on PlayStation. I think they've already made much better efforts this generation compared to the previous generation in terms of the indie game offering that they have. But I don't think it was too long ago where independent developers were kind of fairly vocal about the issues that they had in advertising their games on PlayStation or getting support from account managers of PlayStation, which since then we haven't really heard anything, at least publicly, from Sony or from any developers that were potentially impacted, that there's been any changes there. And I don't think this investment signals any change to that. I think it's just purely a business opportunity where they can see an opportunity to potentially make some money for further down the line. But I guess from my perspective, I don't see 5% investment having sort of any, or having too much weight in the company. I think the company is still majority owned by the actual employees of Devolver themselves. But yeah, so I don't see it having too much of an impact, but I'm not familiar with that world of investments and what that might mean for certain things. So I might hand it over to Flap and look if they've maybe got anything more to add to that.
Yeah, I think you made a good point there, Scott, actually, as well, about I think a lot of the gaming press and headlines and outlets and articles and stuff, obviously, as gaming news, always put the name PlayStation in it. But yeah, I think you made a good point saying that, they've gone public and it's not like PlayStation have done it. Obviously, it's the Sony Corporation which have invested, as far as I understand it. So I think you're right, actually. Let's, if you don't mind, Luke, let's come to you. Have I posed my question incorrectly necessarily? Or, is this just Sony investing in a company they believe is going to make them some profit? Or is this potentially an underlying message not to read into it, that's not what I'm trying to imply, but is this maybe their way of maybe having an inning with an indie publisher /dev to help their indie offerings. What can you tell us about that world, and what do you think?
Yeah, no, it was an interesting course of action. Really, I don't think anyone knew that Devolver were having an IPO. So, well, I mean, clearly a lot of people did, but they weren't privy to disclosing it. So,
was you surprised by the value? That really surprised me.
No, not at all. No? Not at all.
Wow.
I mean, Devolver make a lot of money, and valuations on IPOs are always a little bit inflated anyway. But it didn't surprise me. If it come out at maybe 3 or 4 billion, I think that would have been weird. But 1 billion sounds about right-ish for them. So no, I think in terms of Sony's investment, it's more of, and I think the understanding of what the investment, what they can do with the investment is kind of important more than what they intend to do, because they might, you might want to do all sorts of things if you buy some shares in a company, right? But you're not actually able to affect those. I think, and we don't know the ins and outs of how they're, we know that they're a minority shareholder, they've got 5%, but we don't know what, if any, influence they can wield with their shares in terms of the constitutional makeup of Devolver itself, and how decision making goes on. We know that they, as Scott said, they're pretty much majority owned by their management team or their founders, etc. So in terms of the day-to-day of Devolver, they're not going to suddenly change, and I think this was a concern from some people, suddenly they're making, live AAA service games or something like that. Like, they've done this specifically, essentially to make sure they have a lot of liquidity coming into their company, and they don't have to worry about exactly that, right? Having to pivot away from what they do, which is having these really strange but really creative and successful independent games. And make no mistake, they're still an indie publisher, right? I know they're worth a lot of money, and they now have a lot of money, and they have investment. In fact, I think NetEase actually got 8% of them, for example, on the listing. So it's not just Sony that are in there; it's NetEase as well, and no doubt loads of other institutional investors. But the important thing is that they've retained control in terms of the overall shareholding with their existing management. So nothing's going to change now. Sony might have some influence in terms of what they can do, but it's going to be very little. And it's probably, as people have said, more for a, we're partners, so to speak. PlayStation and or Sony and Devolver are partners. And it makes sense for Sony, given that Devolver bring many games to their platform, and they obviously see them as a real pivotal player in the independent space, to go, here's some extra cash. They're trying to contribute to the success of that company. Obviously, what it means for Sony is if, all goes well and Devolver continue to do well, their shares continue to increase in price, they can make a gain on their investment if they want to sell it eventually, and that's a big thing. Devolver also might now have a really great, dividend policy for when they're successful. Again, that's extra cash for Sony. So, and, for Devolver, taking that sort of investment for a very small percentage of their company is really great. If they've got, it's a 5% valuation on a 1 billion, it's a 5% investment on a 1 billion valuation. So it's probably about $50 million. That's an awful lot of money for the kind of games that Devolver make, right? They don't have massive development budgets or anything like that. So that will keep them going for a very long time. So I think it's a win-win, to be honest. I don't think it will be, suddenly you've got X game launching in on PlayStation exclusively or from Devolver or anything like that. You might have those deals anyway, but there will be more. If that does happen, it won't necessarily have come from this investment, if you see what I mean. It will come from probably some other contract that they've entered into, some other arrangement that they've come to. It's not... PlayStation can't influence things at Devolver just because they've got 5%. I've got 0.00000 whatever of Microsoft, I can do absolutely fuck all to do with them. So I can't do anything because I have, and even huge institutional investors in Microsoft, can't really do much. I mean, there are pressures public companies are subject to, and management teams, shareholders generally can vote down certain decisions. They, all public companies on the London Stock Exchange have to have yearly appointment of directors in terms of, this director's now up for appointment again. Do the shareholders want to reappoint them? They can say no if they want. They don't usually, unless things are going really bad. So there's those kind of things that Devolver are now subject to. But as long as they're doing well and they're doing the things that they're doing, they're not going to be subject to any of that. So I think they will be fine, and hopefully we should get even more great games out of them.
Look, out of interest in, and I appreciate your points of view because they're far more insightful than anything I could say on this sort of topic. That sort of $50 million. Does that just go into the pockets? Does that go just purely into the bank for the company? Is that going to the pockets of the previous private owners? Or obviously the previous owners have essentially, as far as I know, kind of given up a portion of the company to go public, but they've obviously already stated that the majority is still owned by the management team and the employees of the business. So let's say, for example, they give up 49% of the of the business. Is that money going purely into the bank account at Devolver? Is that going to the pockets of the previous or the current management team, or is it maybe a combination of the two? How does this typically work in your experience?
So it would, it depends on the way it was structured pre-IPO, because it seems like they've kind of acquired the shares concurrent with the IPO, if that makes any sense at all. But 95% of the time, the way that works is that it just goes into the bank account of the company. So the company has, there will have been, funnily enough, I did an IPO of a company recently to the New York Stock Exchange. So, and that was for not just me, by the way, I'm not that good. But with a team, we did a listing of a company in Jersey on the New York Stock Exchange. They were valued at $4.5 billion, a completely different industry. But the way that had to work was, there was a whole restructuring of the share capital in that company. You have to restructure how it works in terms of the shares, what rights the shares have, etc., etc. And then once you list, there can be stuff like the Sony thing where they will take a big portion of those shares, and all the company is doing is saying, here are a bunch of shares, you give us a bunch of money for them, we'll take that money away, and that's it. And that's exactly how you say, where it goes into the hands of the company, not the management, even though they're kind of linked intrinsically.
Yeah.
It means that Devolver basically has more cash, it has more liquidity now. So that investment from Sony, that investment from NetEase, all of that will be readily available for Devolver to go, okay, right, what are our priorities now? And as I say, for a company, even though they're worth a lot, for a company that makes the type of games that they do, $50 million is, that could fund, I don't know, maybe 10 games, right? It could fund so many games for them. So I just see it as a real positive. And also, no doubt, the founders are now filthy stinking rich as a result. But they'll be incentivized by various things to become even richer if they can do even better with the company. So they'll be sitting happy. They will have been really pushing for the IPO to happen as quickly as possible so they can overnight become multi-millionaires.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, they did come out and talk about how, they didn't expect it to sort of impact the culture, and it allows them to grow the business and support more games. So I guess that's the hope from like our perspective. Obviously, we don't necessarily care if somebody got stinking rich off this sort of thing, but if ultimately it means that Devolver are going to be release more games of the caliber that they release games at, then that's going to hopefully be going to be the outcome, and a real positive for us.
Yeah, and you can see, I think they announced concurrently with the IPO that they'd bought like 4 development teams. So they purchased Crow Team, who make Serious Sam. Developers have entered the Gungeon. They bought, I think, a couple of others as well.
Yeah.
So they've already, you're already seeing the fruits of the IPO labor, as it were, where they're like, okay, well, let's go and spend some money. Let's go and buy these guys up and have them continue to work under us and be incentivized by all this cash we've got. Still making the same kind of games, but now we don't have to worry about, maybe having to pivot certain stuff if it's not successful enough. They can just focus on what makes Devolver great, which is publishing really unique indie games.
If they could really hurry up and get that Katana Zero DLC out with this investment, that would be that would be
just
great.
Just chuck a couple of million to them, and then have them do it. Yeah, that would be great.
No, thank you very much for your comments there, Luke. Very insightful there, our resident legal expert. I suppose flat, but knowing all of what Luke said, I'm going to rephrase my question, I guess. I know we're kind of running up out of time near the end of the show, but this sounds like great things for Devolver, right? I mean, given what Luke's just told us, this isn't necessarily any messaging regarding Sony's or PlayStation's indie offerings, but more so it's just Sony's investment into Devolver, of which we can only expect more great things from Devolver. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, exactly. They're an interesting publisher, aren't they? They come out with some absolute gems of games and stuff. Like Luke said, 50 million is a lot. They can do a lot with that money, and I certainly hope and think they will, to be honest. So it is interesting and exciting to see what may be coming further down the line. I like everyone said, I think it was just 50 million in and a percentage of a return back out. I don't think there was much more to it than that, although I'm sure Devolver are very grateful for Sony's investment and their trust and faith in them. So perhaps there are some sort of favours that may come along, perhaps early access to certain games, or you never know what's in the pipeline with that sort of thing. But Devolver are interesting. One of my favourites Devolver games is actually my friend Pedro. Really caught me off guard, that one. I absolutely love
that game. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
But more recently we've had Death's Door. I think, is it Weird West? Does that come out next year on the consoles? Carrion as well. Quite like Carrion. We can't pronounce it Carry On because obviously in the UK that means something slightly different.
So we'll call it Sid James.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll call it Carrion for the time being. But some great games, and if this money and investment, carries that on, then fantastic. It's going to be great to see that grow. And it's an interesting point, Pucks. There has been some commentary around PlayStation and their sort of indie offerings and what they've been doing with some of their smaller indie studios. So perhaps this is a little bit to give back, and perhaps it gives them a little bit more of a place footing in the indie market to a certain degree.
That's great news. That's great stuff. Thank you very much, panel, and thank you very much, chat, as well, for tuning in. We are running out of time, unfortunately, so we do not have time to delve into my last topic, but maybe we'll save that in the bank for the next one. But before I do close this off entirely, Flap, do we have any other closing comments about this topic before we end the show?
Not massively. I know Indie Gamer has been very interesting to see how it kind of unfolds. Pretty much kind of listening to kind of Luke's insight to this. One last one. Shizuno Elite. I absolutely love my friend Pedro. So much fun. It really caught me off guard, that one.
Yeah.
So,
really
and Indie's just confirmed Weird West is January release. Is it? I thought it was already out on PC. Perhaps it's not. I thought it was coming to consoles next year, but perhaps I'm wrong. And
Dragon Ball ends with matron. So and with that, I think. And with that, I think we've reached the end of the show, chaps. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you, chat, as well. I hope you all enjoyed the show. How did you all find it? I'll do a very quick outro, I guess. So Scott, what did you think of the show? Enjoy this one today? I know we've not done outros for a while, so I'm going to do one.
Yeah, loved it, mate. Obviously the Horizon and the early access topics were nice and juicy, weren't they?
Definitely,
so we really enjoyed the show, mate. I think if I can just mention a couple of things. First of all, just to let people know, we will be doing a live reactions to the 20th anniversary stream next Monday, so keep an eye on that. And also, we kind of discussed in the chat last week, we're probably going to do some sort of Halo podcast special type thing at some point in the run up to Halo Infinite. We originally thought somewhere maybe like around the 6th, 7th of December, sort of pre-release, but nice and close. But based on the early access conversation we had earlier on today, we might have to bring that forward a little bit. But do keep an eye on those two things as well. Yeah.
No, thank you very much for bringing it up, Scott. Appreciate that very much. That's very true. Luke, do you have a good one today? We had some pretty juicy topics regarding the Forza stuff, right?
Yeah, no, definitely really enjoyed that. And yeah, I mean, the Forza topic is always a good one. Lots of different opinions on that, which I always think is really cool to hear, and no right answers. Those are always the interesting ones as well. So
100%.
So yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much, Luke. And finally, our resident host and founder, Flap. Did you enjoy the show? Did you have a good one?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, like you say, the opening topics were kind of interesting. That whole kind of paying for early access was a topic that kind of came out of nowhere, really. I wasn't really expecting to have to do that topic, but it was something that kind of cropped up, and it is a very interesting point. And as we said earlier, to reiterate a point we've all made several times, I just hope it's not the shape of things to come, but time will tell on that. But yeah, no, it's good. I just need to make sure that we do another shout for the video. This isn't my gameplay footage. This was captured from MK Ice and Fire YouTube channel. Please go and check them out. There is a link in the description below. They do walkthroughs and stuff. So thanks to them for this video. Chat, fantastic as ever. You guys have been amazing. Please like, share and subscribe if you're new. And we will do our utmost to get these shows back on all of our podcast outlets as well. There is a slight issue around that. I will try and get back on it this week and get those uploaded. So, thanks. If you can help us share, the GPG channel out on Twitter and the socials, we'd be eternally grateful. And, looking forward to the next one.
Definitely. And just for those, I've seen a few names in the chat today, so just another quick one. You can find us all, GPG Crew are all on Twitter, and our handles are in the description below as well. So if you'd like to follow and communicate with us and see what we're up to, by all means, follow us, each of us on there. And equally, a lot of our discussions and some of the topics actually all came from our Discord channel. Discord server and the communications which happen on those channels. So if you would like to communicate with us and the rest of the GPG family outside of the show, please feel free to join our Gamepass Gaming server on Discord, of which you can find the link in the description. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us and being here as well. I think Flap's going to handle the outro. So until next time, thank you for tuning in. Take care, guys.